This is The Sports Life.
Can the Bruins win it against Michigan State at the Horn? We're down to 12 seconds to go. Bounce pass to Daly. He's on the right elbow. He'll drive inside, draw contact, bank it in. 7.5 to go. Now it's all about the defense. They'll storm across, wiggle to the right. 4 seconds, 3 seconds to Aikens. A 3 to win it. No good on the front iron. Ball game. Bruins win. Bruins win.
And welcome into the Sports Life. Will Teeman here along with Dalton Scheller, and the Bruins do indeed win. As UCLA knocks off Michigan State, and as Josh Lewin said, there was happiness at Poly Pavilion as UCLA ran their winning streak to 5 straight. As we look at our show for this week, Dalton, one of the things I think people will find interesting is our conversation with Deb Schneider as she continues to try to help us navigate the legalities of what's going on in college sports.
And the truth is, good luck. Deb has maybe the hardest job there is right now, but it'll be a lot of fun to get to. And also later on, there was a really special event at Carver Hawkeye Arena this past weekend where Iowa women's basketball upset number 4 USC, kind of thought to be untouchable were the Trojans, but they do it on Caitlin Clark Jersey Retirement Day. We're going to be catching up with the voice of the Hawkeyes, Rob Brooks, about that game and that day. And also, we'll head to Nebraska because Nebraska volleyball legend and icon John Cook has stepped away, and we'll catch up with the radio voice John Baylor to talk a little bit about Cook's legacy.
Well, as for the sounds of the week, Dalton, what do we got?
Well, let's hang out there at Pauley Pavilion for a moment because even though UCLA got the win against Michigan State 63-61, after the game, UCLA head coach Mick Cronin talked a lot about Tom Izzo, and in some ways, there's some similarities between these two. As Mick Cronin explains, Tom Izzo is an inspiration to him.
Yeah, I told Dan Guerrero when I was being interviewed that I thought that if I could get a job like UCLA, I could build a program like Michigan State. It's a dead quote from Mick Cronin to Dan Guerrero. You know, and he's been to 7 Final Fours, won a title with class, integrity. He's a leader in his community, his school. I mean, if he's not the dean of college basketball, I don't know who is. You know, so I've looked up to him for a long, long, long time. So since I've come here, I've gotten to know him. We've talked a lot more, especially then once we've joined the Big Ten. But I will tell you, like, for us in the coaching world, he reaches out to anybody that's struggling. Could be a football coach. Pat Fitzgerald went through some stuff. I mean, the guy cares about coaches. He's not about flash. You know, he just cares about players. He cares about coaches. You know, and he's just a great, great guy. So I appreciate him. I look up to him. You know, and I said that when we came here, you know, that they had gotten blown out the year before I got here by Michigan State in Vegas. And we got to play them in Maui, and we battled. We just couldn't score. And it was a huge moment for our program when we were able to beat them at Purdue that night, that cold night, rainy night in March, on our march to the Final Four. It's a huge stepping stone. So, you know, I mean, he's the best. Great. He's become a friend, and he didn't have to be. I mean, you know, there's nothing I can do for him. I mean, he don't need my advice. Although I do, like, you know, sometimes I think he needs to blow off steam. A lot of things bother him, but, you know, a lot of things. But, you know, the state of the game. But at least he hasn't run, you know, a lot of other guys have hung it up. He hasn't. Which is, you know, fortunate for the kids that get to play for him and for their fans. Because I'm sure he don't need any money. I'd be shocked if he needed 10 cents. Right? It'd be easy for him to walk. So it's great for our game that he's stuck around.
Mick Cronin, the head basketball coach at UCLA, talking about somebody he admires, Tom Izzo. In Dalton, everything he said was absolutely true, and there's more to it than that. One of Tom Izzo's great assets, and he has many, is that he cares deeply about the game of college basketball and intercollegiate athletics and the people, obviously, that are in it. And so there aren't many people like him, and I'll go on the record as saying there might not be anybody quite like what Tom Izzo does for the people he cares about.
I'd say that's absolutely fair, and it's going to be a lot of fun over the next coming weeks to celebrate whenever Tom Izzo becomes the all-time winningest coach in Big Ten basketball history. But speaking of head coaches, and in front of the microphones, there was a bit of a somber moment from Evanston, Illinois. Northwestern head coach Chris Collins announced to the media and the public that his star player, Brooks Barnhizer, is out for the rest of the year, and Chris Collins got a little bit emotional when delivering this message. Here it is.
You know, he and I got together over the last couple days and had some real heart-to-hearts, and the decision was made to shut it down. And so he's not going to be with us the rest of the year. It's the right decision, but he left it all out there. You know, and I'm sorry I'm getting emotional, but I love that kid. And to not see him be able to get out there today just sucks. But we're going to play our butts off for him, and he's going to be better for it.
Wow, Dalton, I don't know what you say after that. I just don't know what to say.
I think it really speaks to the degree and magnitude. If some people maybe can't quite familiarize themselves with it, how much coaches and players really mean to each other. And you could tell in that emotion how much that hurts Chris Collins to see that Brooks is out. But taking the high road, taking the glass half full approach, they are the Wildcats there. Also, I do want to play this, and again, we're actually going to be talking a little bit about this later on with the Nebraska volleyball radio voice, John Baylor. But head coach John Cook, after 25 years patrolling the sideline in Lincoln for volleyball, has decided to hang it up. He led them to 4 national championships, wild success, and he decided to step away. And he actually talked a little bit during his press conference about how he realized it was time.
It's today Thursday. Monday morning, I was in Ord, Nebraska. And I was there doing a visit to put our spring match there. And they asked me to go over to the Grandview Old People's Home is the best way I can describe it. So I went over and talked to the people that live in Ord, Nebraska. They were super fired up. They're all wearing red. And so and these women are telling me about playing volleyball in the Sandhills in the 50s. It was awesome. And I said, well, how many were on a side? They couldn't remember. But they did remember you could hit the ball twice and it wasn't you wouldn't lose the point. You could actually hit the ball, set yourself and hit it. That was one of the things they said it was in the rules. As I'm walking out, there's this old man, has to be in his 90s. He's on a cane and he's hunched over like this, and I'm walking out the door. He never said a word the whole time, and he goes, Coach, who's going to be the next coach at Nebraska? And I said, that's the decision for our athletic director. And he goes, it's going to be the Louisville girl. And I had one of my cowboy friends with me. He goes, wow, what was that? And I just feel like there was a sign. How did he know? I don't know if it's a sixth sense, but I didn't go in there and talk about retiring. I mean, I was in there just talking to him.
That's an amazing story when you think about it.
It really is. And again, for John Cook, somebody, and he said he's got a cowboy friends and he kind of lives that type of lifestyle, that persona, to have a sign like that kind of appear, it really kind of fits and kind of gives you chills.
Man, that was different. That was different. Well, when we come back with more of the Sports Life, we're going to salute Caitlin Clark. And why not? There has been nobody that's done what she did in Iowa, and maybe nobody will ever do what she has accomplished ever again. Back with more in just a moment.
So, got one for you, boss.
Oh, yeah?
What's black, white, and dented all over?
I give up.
The company truck. I know, but thanks to our agent, we've already submitted an insurance claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Lucky for you, that's simple human sense.
Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you.
Medicaid and CHIP offer free or low-cost health coverage for children and teens. Hospital and doctor visits, prescriptions, shots, and more are covered. That's peace of mind for parents if a child is sick or gets injured. And parents may now be eligible for Medicaid too, even if they've applied in the past. Enrollment is always open. Visit insurekidsnow.gov or call 1-877-KIDS-NOW. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
If you have diabetes, listen up. If you have insurance, you can qualify for a continuous glucose monitor. With a CGM, you can continuously track your levels and trends and spend more time in range, significantly lowering your A1C. More importantly, a CGM eliminates the one thing most people with diabetes hate: painful finger sticks. Order your new continuous glucose monitor today. If you use insulin and if you've seen your diabetes care provider within the last 6 months, you may qualify for your own CGM right now. We'll do all the insurance paperwork and deliver your new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost to you. Medicare and most insurances will cover your CGM, so don't wait. Have your insurance handy and call the Aptiva Medical CGM Health Hotline right now.
800-948-6912. 800-948-6912. 800-948-6912. That's 800-948-6912.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Roxanne Watson is on a mission.
Hello, how are you doing today?
She wants more people to register as organ, eye, and tissue donors.
Are you an organ donor?
Yes, I am.
Yay.
My goal is to sign up the most people in the United States.
What drives her? Roxanne's own life was saved through the gift of a heart transplant, made possible by an organ donor.
I decided that day that I was going to devote myself to the cause of organ donation and signing people up and honoring my donor by doing that.
Now she's back to health, and she's a powerful force helping to save lives every day through her work. Imagine what you can make possible by leaving behind the gift of life.
8 people can be helped with the major organs, and up to 50 people can be helped with a little bit of everything. And when you think about it that way, that you could help that many people, it's amazing. It really is.
Learn more and sign up as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. Go to organdonor.gov. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
Was there ever a doubt, with 22 in the house, that the Hawkeyes pull the upset and defeat number 4 USC 76-69?
A little bit of Carver magic, a little bit of Caitlin magic. Like you said, with 22 in the house, there was no other outcome for today. Unbelievable, and what a great team win for the Hawkeyes.
Rob Brooks and Catherine Reynolds on the call as Iowa pulls off another upset at Carver Hawkeye Arena. Well, that has happened quite a bit over the last handful of years. But what made this one special was that this was the game that the University of Iowa honored Caitlin Clark, obviously the greatest player in the history of women's basketball, and some could argue maybe the greatest player in college basketball history. So, the big upset win. They retire her jersey. Carver Hawkeye had to be crazy. And joining us now to talk about it is the voice of the team, Rob Brooks. And I really liked the reference to number 22's in the house, even though she's not playing. Not bad, huh?
Well, Will, it just there's just a different feel, an aura when obviously whenever she plays, but even when she walks in. And everybody's paying attention, seeing where she's going to sit, who's she with, who's going to show up from a celebrity standpoint. And that's just how it is with her, not only throughout the nation, but for sure in the state of Iowa. And it was going to be a special day. But, it's always nice if you can get a win as well, especially against a top 5 team at the time, and most things went to script. I asked Jan Jensen on Monday, said if you pulled out a piece of notebook paper and wrote down how you would like the day to go, they had the number 1 recruit in the country, among others, there as well, and she said it would have been perfect other than that second quarter, which USC won that one 25-10, but that just gives you an idea of the type of day it was. Tickets were going for $1,000, $800 just to get into the door. And, when I pulled in 3.5 hours beforehand, the people were already lined up waiting to get into Carver Hawkeye Arena like we had seen the last 2 years throughout the Big Ten, and it just had that big game football feel to it. People were standing around and drinking coffee in the morning and talking to one another, and obviously the lines. And it's just one of those days, and there has been a lot of them, as you mentioned, that you just won't forget. It was, I think, the sports writers put a 3-point basket in the first quarter at 118 decibels. And that's how loud it was. And you could hardly at times hear the whistle. And there was no way that the coaches were going to be able to get anybody's attention on the floor.
Well, Rob, obviously you mentioned there's been sellouts in the last couple of years, and it's been a wild environment at Carver Hawkeye Arena now for years with the sellout streak they have. I mean, you referenced the decibels there. Where did this rank among some of the wildest experiences and environments that Carver Hawkeyes had in women's basketball in the last few years? Is this the very top, or what else does it compare to?
Yeah, it's up there. There's no question. A couple of years ago, when Caitlin hit that buzzer beater against Indiana from the right wing to win the game, which was senior night. It was her junior year. Place was going nuts that entire game. And obviously the record-breaking shot to break the NCAA scoring record against Michigan. Then she hit, as you saw, Dalton, last year, that buzzer beater against Michigan State. And that was a terrific atmosphere and a great game as well. And then you've got the NCAA tournaments that had that type of noise to them, because even the 2 times that Iowa got to the title game, got to the Final Four, what I deem as the toughest games were those second-round games. A couple of years ago against Georgia, and then last year against West Virginia, nobody knew who was going to win that game inside of 2.5, 3 minutes. And it was loud there. But this one was up there, I think, just because threefold. You had the recruiting that everybody was talking about, and then obviously a great team in, and then Caitlin's jersey heading to the rafters.
Rob, I do want to ask here, too, because Caitlin had mentioned during her thank you speech to everybody that the Indiana Fever will be playing a game at Carver Hawkeye Arena, and there will be a return of number 22 back to that building. What is that going to be like, and what an excellent experience it is for Iowa fans to be able to have that moment again?
Yeah, well, it's going to be about what we've seen. As I must have got 20 texts that day. They announced it. When are tickets going on sale? How do I get them? It's that type of demand as well. Not only a great college game, but obviously she's going to come back in a professional uniform, and the Fever will play the Brazilian national team early May. And Iowa's going to do all the ticketing and haven't announced exactly how that's going to go. But somebody sent me a screenshot of somehow there's already tickets on the secondary market, and it's $1,300, $1,200, and just crazy amounts of money. But that's going to be a huge buzz too, because around here now, for women's basketball, the season extends into the summer because everybody's still talking about the Indiana Fever and Caitlin Clark. You see just tons of merchandise around town, and that's as soon as the college season ends, they'll just jump right into the WNBA, and this will just pronounce that as well.
Well, Rob, we can talk about all of her points and all the numbers that go with her career. I mean, to score 3,951 points, nobody's ever done that, men or women, in college basketball. But there has to be more to her than that. What do you really think is her magic?
Her competitiveness, without a doubt, her will to win. And anybody that's played against her, played with her, coached her, that's the first thing they'll go to. Yeah, she's got all the talent in the world to do what she does on the basketball court, but so do others, Will. I mean, in your career, you've seen hundreds of them, but very few get to the level she is at because of her competitiveness and her work ethic and making other players better. And that's such a short list in athletics, and that's what drives her. It doesn't matter if it's a 3-on-2, 2-on-1 fast break drill in practice, whether they're playing cards at a hotel. she has that will, and it's just within her that she wants to win and has to win, and that's what has driven her entire life. And you see now she's playing in all these pro-am golf events, and you can tell just picking up the game a couple of years ago, it frustrates her because she wants to be really, really good. And I think whenever her basketball career is over, she'll focus on that and be as good as she can be at that sport. That's just the way that she's built.
Well, Rob, I appreciate it. And you can tell her that I've always wanted to be really, really good at golf.
I think I could still take her.
I got you. Well, Rob, I sure appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
It's always a fun chat with Rob Brooks, especially when we talk about women's basketball. And Caitlin Clark, I just can imagine how electric that was when they retired her number 22. But the pursuit of golf, you need patience.
You know, I'm in that same boat, too.
That's right. Anyway, when we come back with more of the sports life, Deb Schneider is going to join us and try to help us understand if it's possible what is happening behind the scenes in college athletics. But first, a break.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Dad. Did you get a new haircut or something? A new shirt? You're looking good.
What happened?
A little fender bender?
How little?
A few days in the shop little. But thanks to Mom and our agent, we've already submitted a claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto Owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Sounds like simple human sense.
I'm fine, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask.
Ask your independent agent if Auto Owners makes sense for you.
This is a potter's field. When people can't pay for their funerals, they are buried here. It is a lonely, desolate place, littered with unmarked headstones. No one visits. No one leaves flowers. But it doesn't have to be that way. For as low as $1 a day, you can ensure your family will have the money to pay your funeral expenses. We offer burial insurance plans that pay up to $30,000. Considering the average funeral costs more than $10,000, that's peace of mind for your family. There are no medical exams, your rates won't increase, and your policy cannot be canceled as long as you make your premium payments. Call now to get approved in minutes and ensure your final resting place is more than just a pauper's grave in a potter's field.
800-562-2407. 800-562-2407. 800-562-2407. That's 800-562-2407. Paid for by Final Expense Direct.
We all make choices about alcohol. Kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye, Dad. Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, remind me about that party again?
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations, and they want honest answers in everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path, because when you talk, they hear you. Learn more at underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Here's a real-life story that affects 50% of all of us out there. It's called divorce. If you've gotten divorced and now you're struggling to pay your bills and your credit card debts are completely out of control, you need to call this special debt relief hotline right now. We help people with all kinds of money problems caused by different life challenges, a divorce, a job loss, even heavy medical bills. All these life events can sometimes financially stress you out and cause you to get out of control. We help people get their lives back by showing them ways to consolidate and reduce their debt, in some cases for a fraction of what they owe. If your credit card balances are more than $10,000, call us and learn how to reduce your credit card bills and monthly payments now. Here's our number.
Paid for by Debt.com. Call now, 800-810-1584, 800-810-1584, 800-810-1584. That's 800-810-1584.
And welcome back for more of the Sports Life. Will Teeman here along with Dalton Shetland. Don't forget, Auto Owners Insurance, simple human sense. Ask your independent agent if Auto Owners make sense for you. Well, joining us on the show this go-around, we're bringing back Deb Schneider, Of course, Deb is a longtime contributor of the program. She's a sports law attorney and a professor at Michigan State and Wayne State Universities. And last time we talked to Deb, we talked about this action between a football player and the University of Wisconsin program, what that was all about. We're shifting gears with Deb today to talk about revenue sharing, et cetera, et cetera. So, Deb, welcome to the show. And so, revenue sharing with the student athletes at the university level, is this really going to happen?
Well, thank you so much again for having me. I always enjoy talking to you and Dalton. Revenue sharing, is it really going to happen? It is up in the air right now. It is completely up in the air because we don't know if the House settlement is actually going to be finalized. We have a hearing on House, which is the settlement that will allow revenue sharing up to $20 million or $22 million between the schools and their athletes. There's a hearing on April 7th. The Biden administration had one position on it, and that has to do with how revenue sharing and Title IX interact. And we now have a new administration, and we have not yet seen how they're going to be looking at this. So we have some issues out there, and then not the least of which is the fact that this could be deemed, the entire House settlement could be deemed an antitrust violation. So there's a lot going on there that keeps that revenue sharing aspect pretty up in the air.
Well, Deb, you mentioned for a moment there Title IX, and if I dive into that element, that layer of this entire process, it was announced not that long ago that with the current administration, if things went kind of down this same road, that Title IX was going to apply to the revenue sharing model, which kind of threw a wrench into some of the athletic directors' plans. A lot of them had tried to build a model that was looking at divvying out about 75% or so to football and then kind of working down into the 20s, the 15s, 10s, maybe to some of the other sports. What is it about this Title IX aspect that's really causing some maybe chaos for athletic directors in Power 5? Why is this a surprise? And obviously we still don't know what the future holds, but how does this play?
Well, that's a great question, Dalton. The issue is that Title IX requires schools to provide equal athletic opportunity regardless of sex. And when they look at that, that means benefits, opportunities, and treatment given to male and female athletic teams have to be equal. Athletic financial assistance, including scholarships and theoretically anything having to do with name, image, likeness would have to be equal. And the school also has to accommodate the athletic interests and abilities of its students. Well, that becomes very complex if the school is providing revenue sharing and actually paying the athletes themselves. Keep in mind that Title IX governs when the school, the educational institution or educational program is receiving federal financial assistance. So as long as that's happening, and the school is making the payments, we have a Title IX issue. On January 16th, the Biden administration, the Department of Education, came out with a memo which talked about this. And they said that the schools had to provide that equality. The question becomes, what is equality? Is it a 50-50 split, or is it based on the value of the athletes? That is still very, very unclear. And each school is having to unpack this themselves. Do they allocate revenue sharing equally, or like you said, have that 75% or more towards football based on the value of the team to the university? That's a big problem because there's really no guidance on this. And then when we add in the fact that we have a new administration which has said that, which we expect to likely change this guidance, the schools are trying to figure out, do they provide the revenue sharing based on revenue generation, on proportionality? And then the next question of that becomes, who's actually paying? If the university is subject to Title IX, perhaps an outside organization, say a broadcaster or maybe even a collective, would not be subject to Title IX. And as long as House does actually get approved in its current form, the schools are going to have to make that decision based on their philosophy, based on whether or not they have an appetite for risk, based on whether they're going to apply the revenue equally or whether they're going to do based on the value of the sport to the school. And I think there are arguments both ways. The underlying thing, though, is that I expect we will see lawsuits regardless of how the school goes about applying this.
So now let me throw in NIL into this thing. If we have revenue share, do you still have revenue from name, image, and likeness?
Well, that's where a lot of the schools are looking to get the money, Will, because what they're doing, and that was that Xavier Lucas situation, they are looking to purchase from the athlete their NIL rights, and then the school themselves will go out and sell those NIL rights. So NIL is a big piece of this puzzle because that's where the money's coming from. Most of the athletic departments are not making enough money to take 10, 15, 20 million and funnel it to the athletes, regardless of how they funnel it to the athletes. So we have that issue, is that NIL is really going to be the big piece of that puzzle. The secondary piece of that is how the school supports the students in getting their NIL. So under this Title IX aspect, the benefits, opportunities, and treatment provided to the school, assisting its student athletes in obtaining and managing their NIL agreements, becomes potentially subject to Title IX. There's actually a lawsuit out there in Oregon where the women's volleyball team is alleging that the school is not supporting them equally to the football team. So we have to look at what is the program of the school providing the same availability and quality of sports information? Is it providing the same access to publicity resources? Are the promotional devices equal? All of that has to go into it. And that may not have anything to do with the revenue generation aspect of how we're going to actually divvy up the money, but it may have a lot more to do with how we publicize. So maybe publicity is equivalent based on sex, but then the revenue generation and the divvying up of that aspect is based on proportionality.
I remember when all this was so much simpler, but Deb, nonetheless, here we are. I do have two other questions that get away a little bit from the legality of this situation, and I want to shoehorn these in there. So we're going to rapid fire these. One, the financial piece. You just mentioned a moment ago that athletic departments can't really afford to pay the amount that they're talking about with revenue sharing and continue to exist the same way. I mean, we just saw recently Indiana University laid off 25 different positions from their athletic department. You imagine some of it's in preparation of this new day and age. And also there's the report that Ohio State this last year worked at a deficit with its athletic department. And you read that and you're like, I don't know exactly what it all means, but it doesn't sound good. I mean, it seems like there's a real truth to how is any of this sustainable and affordable?
I agree. I think that we have a real problem. This is assuming that there's money in the kitty to divvy up and this revenue share. But what this is doing is it's taking away from the athletic departments. So the athletic departments, which are in general operating at a deficit, Michigan State operated at a deficit for 4 of the last 5 years, Ohio State laying off positions. I think actually this is going to hurt rather than help collegiate athletics because the schools in general, even in Ohio State, are not making money on their athletics. So where do they get $20 million? We have to look for another source of revenue. And I think that's where NIL comes in because that's how outside influences are actually able to pay the athletes in a roundabout, perhaps indirect manner. And that's going to make all the difference for these universities. That's why NIL becomes so incredibly important. And the issue there is the schools have always been trading off their athletes' NIL through jerseys or video games or whatever, and now they have to share the money. And they're not equipped and they're not set up to figure out how to share that revenue.
Okay, Deb, I'm going to go to the other road here. I'm going to make believe I'm an athletic director for a second, and it's my job to balance his budget. Here's where I'm a little foggy, okay? I have a star athlete, and I'm going to buy his NIL rights. And I'm assuming that's a big number. And he's going to get that number, correct? Whatever that number is. We're going to agree to a number, he's going to get it. Now, so I've committed to this athlete so much cash, but I'm going to go out and raise money selling his NIL. So at the end of the day, part of this is to make this work. If I give you, Deb, to be my quarterback $1 million, does that mean the ADs are out there and the fundraisers trying to sell for $2 million so they have some money left? Is that how this is going to work?
I think that's exactly how this is going to work. The schools are going to be looking to sell those NIL rights, which quite frankly, they already do. They sell them through broadcast. They sell them through the jerseys. They sell them through the bobbleheads or whatever they've already done. They're selling the objects or the broadcast rights, publicity rights. That's what they've always been doing. And now we're just taking some of the revenue that we're getting from that and providing it to the athletes. The issue with that is that there's going to be a real question as to if we're actually making more than the school was already making, because the athletic director also has the problem of they have to support other sports because, again, circling back to our Title IX, we have to provide equal opportunity to both men and women athletes, as well as revenue generation and non-revenue generation sports. So all of that comes into play. It's one way to potentially make more money because maybe we only would have sold NIL objects for 3 or 4 of the athletes. Now we can sell them for more athletes. Maybe some of the athletes have their own social media presence and they might be worth more than you would otherwise think. And I'm thinking in particular of someone like a Livy Dunn. But that's pretty up in the air as far as how that athletic director is going to balance their budget.
Sounds to me like there's a lot of wheeling and dealing about to take place in the little world of intercollegiate athletics.
I think you are right on that. As always, it's going to be interesting to watch.
Well, Deb, as always, we appreciate you joining us, and I'm sure we'll talk to you soon because this story has a lot of loose ends.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for having me. Always a pleasure to talk to you both.
As always, a good chat with Deb Schneider. Well, when we come back with more of the Sports Life, a look at an end of a legacy. It's all coming up right after this.
So, got one for you, boss.
Oh, yeah?
What's black, white, and dented all over?
I give up.
The company truck. I know, but thanks to our agent, we've already submitted an insurance claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Lucky for you, that's simple human sense.
Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
Do you hear that? That's the sound of uncertainty lurking under your hood. You know the feeling. I know I do. That sudden sinking sensation when you see a check engine light or your car unexpectedly breaks down and you're faced with sky-high repair bills. It's time to shield against unexpected repairs with CarShield. CarShield is America's most trusted auto protection company and has an A rating with the Better Business Bureau. Don't let the fear of a breakdown keep you up at night. Trust the Shield, Car Shield, and say goodbye to terrifying repair bills and hello to peace of mind. Your plan also comes with 24/7 roadside assistance, courtesy towing, rental car options, and so much more. Don't wait till it's too late. Call Car Shield now before a breakdown. Protect your wallet. Protect your car with Car Shield. Get our best protection ever. Call now. You'll thank me later. 800-965-1292. 800-965-1292. That's 800-965-1292.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Did you receive a call or message that mentioned Social Security and demanded immediate action? Did the caller know your Social Security number or other personal information and tell you that your Social Security number had been used in connection with the crime? Did you feel worried that your Social Security number might be suspended, your bank account might be frozen or seized, or you could be arrested? That is not the Social Security Administration. Social Security will not threaten you, demand your personal information, or instant payment, email or text you pictures or documents, or use a real government official's name to gain your trust. Social Security does not accept payments by gift card, prepaid debit card, internet currency, or by mailing cash. Criminals use these forms of payment because they are hard to trace. Do not be fooled. Hang up. Ignore them. Report this criminal activity to the Social Security Administration Office of the Inspector General at oig.ssa.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
So I just felt like it's time to make that change now, and it was a feeling, and it's a freeing feeling, and it's am I going to miss it? Hell yeah. Yeah, I'm going to miss it. But I'm going to be the biggest cheerleader.
Well, that's the way John Cook, arguably maybe the greatest volleyball coach in the history of the sport, decided to retire after an amazing run at Nebraska. And joining us to talk a little bit about it is a guy who's been with him the entire way. And that's John Baylor, the voice of the Nebraska volleyball team. And before we talk about John Cook and all that, I've got to ask you, John, about your stay there. John Cook, the coach, has 4 national titles. You as a broadcaster, you've got 5.
Yeah, all I did was watch, though, so don't give me too much credit. I describe other people accomplishing a lot. Nebraska Volleyball is the greatest show on Terraflex, and I've had a box seat to that show. And 6 years with Terry Pettit and 25 with John Cook, and it's just been an amazing run. And here in Nebraska, volleyball means more than almost any other sport, just right behind football, and probably volleyball means more here than any other place in the country. It's just a great honor, and I was a little surprised that he decided to pull the trigger about a week ago.
So what do you think really led up to it, John?
He's got one grandchild, a second on the way with his daughter Lauren. He's got a son Taylor. They've got a beautiful home in western Wyoming. Nebraska's in eastern Nebraska. It's a long way away. It's been 25 years after he had spent 7 at Wisconsin. That's 32 consecutive years. It's a tough profession, and he's turning 69 in April, and I think all that suddenly changed his mind. I felt the morning after they tragically lose the national semifinal to Penn State that he was coming back. And, he's got an All-American setter and an All-American outside, Bergen Riley, Harper Murray. They got 2 years left. I thought maybe 2 more years, but at least one more to go get that Hollywood ending. Crowning achievement. It would be his 5th national championship. But I think over the holidays, he looked around at all he was missing back in Wyoming, and the thought of another mountain to climb, 2025 season ahead, and all that goes with it. And I think that's a big part of it. And then I think secondarily, he thought, I got to go get Danny Busboom Kelly. And the longer she stays at Louisville, maybe the less likely she is to say yes.
That's a really interesting point. We heard his comments earlier about that move there at the coaching spot. John, I want to ask you, when we talk about John Cook, I mean, we talk about the 4 national championships, we talk about 25 years, wild success. How should people remember him? What is John Cook's legacy?
Well, there's a lot there, but I think what's less known is that he's someone that always was reading, always was searching, always was trying to get better. 1% better is one of their phrases in the culture that is Nebraska volleyball. How do we get 1% better? So he was always tweaking the practice schedule. Every moment is choreographed. Everything is orchestrated. The road trips, like we never have powdered eggs. It's always real eggs. I mean, the food the attention to detail is remarkable. And in his late 50s, guys, 10 years ago, he hit a wall and he thought about leaving then. And he really reinvented himself and he reinvented the program. For example, he brought in a team psychologist that meets with the players, that meets with the whole team, that meets with the coaching staff. He brought in a strength coach dedicated to volleyball, a whole strength regime focused on volleyball. So many little things, little experts, little tweaks that together really had a huge impact. And we just saw that starting in 2015. And remember, from 2009 to 2014, that's 6 seasons, Nebraska went to 0 Final Fours. And in 2015, it started what I call the golden age of Nebraska volleyball. The last 10 seasons, Huskers have been to 7 Final Fours. 7 Final Fours in 10 years, 5 championship matches in 10 years. All of that were the fruits of the reinvention of himself and the program that started around 2010.
There's an old saying, John, we've all heard this. When you get to be the new coach, all the old coaches tell you, don't win too much too fast. Then his first year, 34-0, and he's a national champ. Did anybody say, well, where do you go from there?
I don't remember anyone, but he says now that he thought to himself, I've got all the answers. And one thing he's learned in the 24 somewhat humbling seasons since, that the more you coach, the less you know. And that's what really fueled him. He was always searching, always trying to figure out what's the edge, what's the change. I'll just give you some examples. I mean, we lost in 2004 in Louisville, ironically, in the regional final to USC because we just had a libero that wasn't as strong as their libero, and he realized, okay, we got to go get an elite libero every year and use one of our 12 scholarships. That's just one example. Here's another example. In 2015, again, after this process, psychologists, a lot of culture building, the now assistant coach, then the starting setter, as a redshirt sophomore, Kelly Hunter, asked Coach Cook, please don't stand up during matches. I mean, you've already done the hard work. We already know what we're expected to do. When we make a mistake, we're as aware of it as anybody. You don't need to stand up and kind of maybe even exacerbate the situation. And Coach Cook, the earlier Coach Cook would have said, no, I need to stand up to show you how much I care. The new evolved Coach Cook sat down. He never stood during matches since 2015, the last 10 years. So he just I'm inspired by it because in his late 50s, he reinvented himself, and now he's in his late 60s, and he just was always evolving, and he was doing his best work at the end of his career.
Well, John, you've talked about and outlined what Nebraska volleyball means to the fans. You've talked about the inspiration John Cook has been to you yourself as the radio voice. I'm curious if you can describe what John Cook means to the community there, not just as the coach, but the person.
Stability, success, loyalty, hard work. In Nebraska, we really value hard work. When, a basketball player dies for a loose ball, we really appreciate that. If we're going to lose in football, we want to lose, running the fullback down the middle. I mean, that's who we are. We're just hard work, grain-fed, beef-eating offensive linemen who redshirt and are 300 pounds, by the time they're a fifth-year senior. I mean, we just put in the work and really appreciate it. And no one will outwork John Cook. And so, especially at a time when football success was so fragile the last 20 years, here he was, this pillar of success. 12 Final Fours in 25 years, 7 in the last 10. So at a time when there was such change and disruption in college sports, he was this rock against the winds of change that was getting stronger every year. And he really helped create this monster that is Nebraska volleyball. Sure, we love success, and we're fans. We don't have any beaches here. We don't have any mountains here, so we're fans. But we really love hard work, and we really appreciate success. And he embodied, thanks to his attention to detail and his indefatigable approach to and singular effort towards the cause that is Nebraska volleyball, really captured the hearts of this whole state.
I have to ask you about the volleyball game in the football stadium. When that first came up in conversation, did you think it would really work? Did you think you'd get over 92,000 people at Memorial Stadium?
Yes and no. Yes, that I thought it would work because he had been talking about it. It had been discussions, at meals on road trips for years. Like, okay, we got to go to the football stadium. 3 years or so. So it was already part of the narrative, within the inside, leaders of the program, and I presume within the athletic department. So the question was when and how, and how do you choose a night that you're not going to get blistering Nebraska heat or 25 mile an hour Nebraska winds or worse, but 92, I was thinking 40. I mean, we can fill up our basketball rate of 14,500 any night we want. Any night we could have 14,000. Rutgers could come in. We'd have 14,500. We've been sold out for regular season matches at the 8,600 capacity Devaney Center since 2013, since we moved there, and prior to that, the Coliseum since 2001. So sellouts aren't a problem when it's 14,500 capacity. When you have a 92,000 capacity, I thought we might go 40,000, but then within 48 hours we had 80,000, and we were within reach of a record. And so they opened up the additional seats. Then you realize, oh my goodness, this is global. This is going to capture the imagination. These images, when you see those still photographs or any video from that match, you're moved by it because what it suggests about women's sports, about a love affair between a program and a sport and a region, a state, really. So anyway, that's not surprising. That's Nebraska athletics. I know at Wisconsin, Michigan State, they present sports so well, but I can't imagine anyone doing it better than the University of Nebraska at Lincoln, whether it's football, volleyball. They just know how to put on a spectacle, and it was illustrated that night.
Well, John Baylor, longtime voice of this Nebraska volleyball team, thanks for sharing your thoughts. And by the way, congratulations to you for having one of the greatest seats in the house.
I'm pretty fortunate. I never take it for granted. Thanks, gentlemen.
What a fun chat with John Baylor. I bet he could go on and on and on with stories. And when your team is good, the stories are pretty good as well. When we come back with more of the Sports Life, our parting shots in just a moment.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Dad. Did you get a new haircut or something? A new shirt? You're looking good.
What happened?
A little fender bender?
How little?
A few days in the shop little. But thanks to Mom and our agent, we've already submitted a claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto Owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Sounds like simple human sense.
I'm fine, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask.
Ask your independent agent if Auto Owners makes sense for you.
Everything is expensive right now. Gas, food, you name it. You're spending more, you are making the same or less money. So, what do? You rack up credit card debt. That's what you do. It's not your fault. It's the economy. And guess what? If you rack up too much credit card debt like some of us, you can't pay your bills. Then the credit card companies, as nice as they are, start hounding you for money. Then you start your downward spiral. A smart thing for you to do is to call the Zero Debt. They can help you consolidate all your credit card bills into one affordable payment. Millions of people have done it. It works to make you debt-free. Make this free call right now. It costs you nothing to learn more.
800-298-9093. 800-298-9093. 800-298-9093. That's 800-298-9093.
We are strong, we are resilient, and we will get through this together. But these are stressful times, and it's important to also practice good self-care. It's normal to feel overwhelmed, anxious, or afraid, but there is hope. Reach out to someone, connect with your friends, stay in touch with your community, and know that you are not alone. Learn more at wearebroadcasters.com/hope. Furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
I found hope in the midst of an overwhelming situation.
Alcoholism is a disease that can affect any family. Everyone suffers, but there is help and hope at Al-Anon Family Groups.
Al-Anon gave me my life back. I'm a better father and husband.
Are you in an overwhelming situation because of someone else's drinking? Al-Anon and Alateen can help. Local and virtual meetings are available. Maybe one could work for you. Call 1-866-200-0033 or visit alanon.org/hope.
I'm Naheem Hines, professional football player. No matter the challenges I face every day in the NFL, my mom is always there for me, despite her own struggles with muscular dystrophy. And MDA is there for my mom. At their 150 care centers across the U.S., MDA is the leading organization in research and care for kids and adults with muscular dystrophy, ALS, and related neuromuscular diseases. Join me and learn more at helpmda.org today. Thank you.
And welcome back for more of the Sports Life. Will Tiemann here along with Dalton Shetler. Good show this week. Couple of salutes to greatness. An always intriguing conversation with Deb Schneider about the highs and lows and all the curves going on in the world of intercollegiate athletics. And with all of that, we have now worked our way to our parting shots. So, Dalton, what do you got?
Yeah, by the way, if you missed any of those conversations throughout the show, or you just want to listen to the entire show again, make sure you give us a follow on Twitter or X at SportsLifeNow is our name. We'll have all the content posted there. But for the parting shot, since we're in the first week of February, I wanted to start taking a look because it's never too early now for March Madness. It's a month away, believe it or not, that the NCAA tournament will be coming around. And if you're a Big Ten basketball fan, both men's and women's, taking a look at the bracketology. For the men, Joe Lenardi of ESPN has 10 teams making it in right now. USC's not too far off the bubble on the wrong side, so maybe 11 they're flirting with. On the women's side, they're talking about maybe 13 teams making it into the NCAA tournament from the Big Ten Conference. So overall, if you're a Big Ten basketball fan, you could have 23 or 24 teams potentially to watch and root for throughout March Madness, and I think that is incredible. Obviously, it's a byproduct of conference realignment, right? And it's a big league. But when you talk about 23 or 24 combined, that's simply insane.
How about just one winning it? What do you think? Is that good? Well, I had a chance to do a game the other day at Poly Pavilion, which led me into the record books. I just was curious about the history of the place. And, of course, John Wooden, legendary coach, was there. And I thought you'd get a kick out of this one. The building opened in 1965. He retired in 1975. So in his run in that building, Dalton, he lost 3 games. 3 games. But here's what I think you'll really like. I looked up what was the first game ever played there. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the first game ever played was November 27th, 1965. It was a scrimmage game between the number 1 preseason ranked varsity UCLA Bruins against the freshman UCLA Bruins. And when it was all said and done, the freshmen beat the number 1 preseason team in America by 15, 75-60, led by a guy named Lou Alcindor.
I figured.
Yeah. He had 31 points and 21 rebounds. That's pretty crazy, isn't it? And with that, that's a wrap for our show for this week. And we should also note that you can find us wherever you find your podcasts, like SoundCloud, Spotify, and Apple. And make sure to check us out and hit subscribe. As always, thanks to the Big Ten Network. The Sports Life is produced by Dalton Shetler. And our executive producer is Wendy Hart. So on behalf of Dalton Shetler, I'm Will Tiemann, and thanks for your time.